Hi, I'm Liam Dann, New Zealand Herald Business Editor at Large, and welcome to this episode of Money Talks. This is a podcast about money, but we're not going to tell you how to get rich, and we're not going to try and pick the next interest rate move. In this series, I'll be talking to interesting New Zealanders about how money has shaped their lives and what they've learned over the years. For today's podcast, I'm joined by Labour MP for the Mana electorate and the party's finance spokesperson, Barbara Edmonds. Kia ora, Barbara. Welcome to Money Talks.
Talofa lava, Liam. Thanks for having me.
Yes, talofa lava. Look, you are new to the finance portfolio. You started in February. How are you enjoying it so far?
Enjoy is a prescriptive word.
Yeah. I mean,
I think it's like any new job, it kind of takes you about 6 months to settle in. That's kind of the barometer I've used in my previous careers. It's taking a bit to settle in. There are bits that I enjoy. There are some bits that I'm like, less so. But it's we're just post my first budget in opposition.
Yeah.
So lots of things I've learned for next time.
Sure. Well, let's jump back and talk a little bit about growing up and money, of course. So, can I ask, what were your first memories of money? Do you remember the first time you might have held money in your hand or your first time you were aware of it around?
Well, we grew up with not much money because my parents are migrant parents who came to New Zealand in the 70s, and Mum got cancer. So she died when I was 4. So my dad gave up his job as an admin clerk in the Navy in Devonport and just went on the benefit to basically until I got to college.
Yeah.
So I don't actually have much memory of money, if I could put it that way, obviously, because we didn't have much. And there were some times when the cupboards were bare. Probably actually one time I do remember quite fondly. It was actually on the day we buried Mum, which was also my 5th birthday, the 18th of January. We went to the dairy, so the View Road Dairy in Glenfield, and the shopkeeper Murray there, he let me go around the counter to pick whatever I wanted.
Oh, yeah.
So money wasn't an object for that, and that's a pretty big thing for a 5-year-old. It's like, oh, I get to go behind the shop, the shop counter. I get to pick whatever I want. So, I picked a lead, which was an old like Sprite, lemonade,
I remember that.
and a Kit Kat.
Yeah.
But, I think that's probably one of my earliest memories around, wow, if money wasn't a thing, I could pick whatever I wanted.
It's interesting. It's interesting how many people I talk to in New Zealand, pocket money or whatever, that corner dairy.
The corner dairy story is so real.
Yeah. But, so obviously, not much money, but did you feel the absence of money? Like when you as a kid, relative to other kids, I guess North Shore is, quite affluent.
Yeah, well, we were brought up in Glenfield, which was actually one of the areas where the government at the time had done a lot of property development. So that was one of the housing boom kind of areas. Universal Homes built our family home through the capitalisation of family scheme benefits. That's how my parents got their home. I do remember walking to school in bare feet, but I thought every kid did that,
Right, yeah.
I really did. I think the first time I realised, and then, obviously sometimes you were hungry, sometimes you weren't, you didn't really think about it. I think the first time I actually did kind of realise there was a difference was I was really close to our next door neighbour, and the young daughter who used to babysit, must have been about 10 or 9 because I was still in primary school. She had a ballet recital. It was in town at the old Maidment Theatre, and she picked the mother and the daughter picked me up from netball, and I was soaked because of netball, but I had no shoes either because my netball shoes were totally soaked. I remember going to the ballet with no shoes and kind of feeling that, I'm a bit different.
Right, yeah.
So I noticed that, and that's probably the first time I kind of realised that we didn't quite have everything that others had.
Yeah, sometimes people feel that, maybe, going back a few decades, the inequalities weren't so stark that you could sort of live a life in New Zealand without so much money and you didn't feel necessarily so different from the other people around you. Was that?
Yeah, we also didn't have social media and this access to information that's constantly telling you what you have and what you don't have.
Yeah.
You don't have these social media influencers who are sharing parts of their life, which is, my perspective, not totally real, or being sponsored by someone to produce a product, to advertise a product. So I think that sort of awareness where we didn't have that that technology. And actually back in the day where, your community was the little primary school plus the hospital plus the place where your parents went to work, whereas now our children are exposed to way more through technology.
Yeah. Did you have a big extended family, siblings?
So I'm the youngest of four because Mum passed away. My dad is the eldest of 19. Grandpa's 19 children. My grandpa had two children. My mother is the youngest of her family of 10. She was also only the second one to pass away, so she was the baby. So at the last count, and this was the early 2000s, and my aunties and uncles were still having children, I have 84 first cousins.
Wow, yeah, that's
a very big Samoan family.
Yeah, it sounds great. And look, you mentioned your mum passing away when you're quite young. Is it right that you actually inherited her name? Is that?
Yeah, so I was born Rachel Whati. That's the name that was given to me by my parents when I was born. So on her actual day that she was buried, like Samoan sort of tradition, we have a big feed afterwards. The matai of her family, so her brother, who was the whaipule, the head of our mother's side of the family, he basically announced then at the wake, if you would say, that my family was now to refer to me as Barbara or Balepa, and that was my mum's name. So no more, he sort of overstepped my dad in some respects, but said that basically now she's passed away, I was to carry her name.
Wow, is that like a bit of a shock for you? Or you just take it in your stride at that age?
Take it. I guess I didn't quite understand.
When you're five, you go with the flow. But
first of all, you don't understand your mum dying, but then second of all, you don't understand some of these big decisions that are made for you. So some of my family still call me Rachel, and I respond.
Right, yeah.
Really easily. Or they call me my Samoan name, which is Whati, and I respond to that. But it just happened.
Yeah. Obviously you've been in the real hard-nosed world of tax law, and I'll get to that. But I'm just interested to know what the approach to money in the Samoan community was like at that time. Is it sort of, even now, do you see a different attitude to economics and money in that community?
It's around basically burdens being shared.
Yeah.
So it's very much a communal model in the way that families will work hard. They will work, sometimes 2-3 jobs because Pacific people generally are paid much lower. But when you need it the most, the family comes together and donates. And so really simple example for you. My parents, my father's siblings, they had been saving for decades for the time when my grandmother would pass away. She passed away a couple of years ago. They had saved, I think, around $150,000. When her funeral actually happened, it cost the family $110,000 for her funeral because we do cultural gift exchanges. Yeah. The exchange of gifts, the gifts that were given to our family to honour our grandmother was about $100K.
Wow.
So there is money that's being exchanged, but it's very much around, we were, as a family, we were giving money back, but at the same time, other family, extended family, friends, people of the church that she belonged to were also giving money to try and help us. I mean, we were fortunate. We're in a position where our parents were quite smart. They thought save the money, fundraise over decades, but it's not like that for every Samoan family. And so that's why when people say for Samoans, we say wha lawi lawi, sort of problems or events, that funerals are quite a big burden because we have some cultural exchanges that happen that cost a lot, not just in fine mats, but money and food and other things.
And there's a sort of a cultural feeling that it sort of goes around.
It does. It does go around. We reciprocate. So, family members that would have come to grandma's, we write them in a book, we write down how much they gave, and then generally what happens is that when, say, someone from that family passes away, we would go and reciprocate and take what we call a si'i, which is a gift, and they would respond with a soa, which is a response back to us. And so depending on how close your family exchange is or you are to the person that's died, sometimes we do the soa straight away, the exchange of gifts, which is generally a mat or a tapa cloth, a fine mat or a tapa cloth. It is some form of, sometimes in its money. We will do an exchange for that, a soa, which is basically money back.
Yeah.
But we will record who they are so that when that person passes away, we then go reciprocate at their funeral.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. did you have an interest in money and things like that? I mean, at school, was that sort of something that
Yeah, I think like most Kiwi kids wanted to be a shopkeeper. At some point and played shop.
Did you have part-time job?
It's funny enough. I've just done a speech on Auckland's North Shore at the North Harbour Hockey Stadium, and we had to. I had Shannon Halbert with me, and we stopped off at this industrial site down the road. I said to Shannon, "This is where my first real job was. It was a catering company, and so my sister used to run the office in a catering company, and so we got hired as young 12, 13-year-olds to come and help waiter and stuff like that. So, I mean, I've had lots of sort of mini job or, part-time jobs sort of growing up. But
so that would have been the first time you sort of had a few dollars in your pocket.
Yeah, and I remember that this particular catering company said, look, if you come and do 2 nights of this training course with us, we will increase your wages to $14 an hour. So I remember that. But my other job that I did was actually, didn't feel like a job, was I used to coach netball. I used to be one of the netball helpers, coach netball for primary school kids at Netball North Harbour, which they still have now during the holiday program. So it's not that money mattered. It's just a kind of, I think, because I always had an opportunity to earn money through not having to apply for something. It was just sort of always there, despite our wider family, being probably having less money.
Yeah. I mean, was netball a big thing for you?
Sports was.
Sports was a big thing in your life.
Yeah, big time. I was just saying at the speech, like I represented North Harbour in basketball, volleyball, netball, javelin and rugby.
Wow.
But that was me. I was busy. We're busy young kids. And I mean, and that was one of the things that our dad allowed us to do was, basically keeping us busy, keeping us active so that we wouldn't get into trouble.
But you never, because there's another step to sort of take one of those up to the next level. It's sort of the commitment. Did you not?
Not really. I think I liked doing a broad range of sports, and also, life changes, right? And I went to university and then got pregnant. So there was a different part of my life.
But you were, obviously, you must have been quite good at school. I've got here that you were head girl at Carmel College. Is that right?
Yeah, I was the co-head girl there. Yep.
Is that like I was a head boy at Cashmere High a long time ago.
Yep.
I was probably the worst head boy at Cashmere High. Like, they had a terrible system that year where they let students have some involvement in the vote and all that sort of thing. So I don't think I earned it. But did you? Did I earn it? Did you?
Well, we kind of had the teacher and the kids that voted for it. So the teachers had 2 votes to 1 for the kids. I don't know. Leadership is kind of a thing that's run in my family. So my sister was head girl. My brother was co-head boy of our brother's school. My oldest sister, she was on the school council. We kind of were always pretty good kids, And our dad, because he didn't have much money, or we didn't have much money, he had gone to an agreement with the school that he would pay off our school fees. And it took him about 10 years afterwards to fully pay that debt. But my dad always, when him and mum came to New Zealand, they wanted us to have a good education. He knew that he had to get involved with the school, and he felt like it was his way to give back to the school for allowing him to pay the fees off. So Dad was on the PTA, for the school fairs. He'd drive the school van and go pick up all the veggies from the different markets, farmers markets and stuff like that. And he was on the board of trustees. He was also the parent that when the schools had trouble with Pacific kids, he would help bridge that relationship.
Sure.
So in some ways, we always had a dad that was active in the school. I think in some ways we kind of just mirrored that service. And because we went to Catholic schools, there's a big part around serving and social justice.
It sounds like he was a good role model then in the sense of, making it clear that leadership was a thing you could take on. You
had to do. And it's one of the things, before I became an MP, I was heavily involved in my own kids' schools. But part of the strategy with one particular school that we moved out of statutory management was basically the number one thing was we had to re-engage with our school community. We had to bring our parents back into school in order to grow it and to basically feel connected. And so I don't know, just kind of, I think it's just ingrained in me, that service.
Yeah. Did you have a sense at high school, of what you wanted to do with your life at that point? Or?
Oh, yeah, I wanted to either be a doctor or a lawyer, like any good Samoan kid, with strict parents. And so when I actually finished school, I had a scholarship and I went to AUT and did my first year of physiotherapy. Found it so boring.
Yeah.
Failed some papers, passed some papers, wasn't for me. And then I went and that's what led me to insurance.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I went and worked for insurance for a couple of years.
Okay. So you worked in, you just worked. You didn't go back to university straight away.
No. So I basically had a gap year. At the time as well, I wanted to help my dad with the bills. So I had to cover like a loan, some utilities, Sky. That was one thing that I made sure that our dad had was, be able to have Sky.
Watch the sports.
Watch the sport. Yeah, he deserved that after all those years of looking after us. And so I actually went to, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I did an insurance job, started off as a cashier at the Takapuna Office of State Insurance, and then progressed through there to become a claims advisor and negotiating claim settlements.
Sure.
So, that was just under 2 years. That was 2 years. And that led me to basically a love of contract law.
Right,
Which then,
so you were examining the contracts for the insurance?
Yeah, and basically figuring out what people were entitled to, what we could negotiate if they weren't happy with that, working with suppliers.
Yep.
Basically hooking people up with one of our assessors if we needed to, or a loss adjuster. I really liked that element of it. And then when the job moved down to Wellington, decided I didn't want to move to Wellington at the time, ironically. Decided, well, what do I want to be, a doctor or a lawyer? Doctor wasn't going to work out, so I went to uni to become a lawyer.
Law degree. And so did you specialise, you contract law, did you specialise in tax law, or is it?
I actually hated taxation at university because our lecturer, who was still around, and actually he presented at Finance Expenditure Select Committee earlier this year, actually, and I said his Socratic method just put me off taxation.
Right.
However, it was kind of, you learn it, you absorb it, but actually I was also doing ancient history, and Roman history was one of the papers I did, and so learnt a bit more around tax and basically the trade-offs if you overtax or you undertax and what that can do to an empire with the Western Roman Empire. So, and then just by serendipity met a friend who's now a very good friend, and who worked at IRD National Office, and she encouraged me to apply for the graduate roles, and I did. Yeah.
And you were with IRD for quite a long time, right?
Yeah, just under 10 years, both in a policy role, then as a solicitor role, and then as an acting manager for about 6 months before I went into the Beehive. And then when I went into the Beehive, looked after 2 revenue ministers for the National Party, so Judith Collins and Michael Woodhouse, and then Labour came in. Yeah,
well, I mean, a couple of things I was going to ask about. First of all, it's quite a, I guess, you're working for the public sector.
Yep.
But once you understand, tax law for the IRD, there must be opportunity to go and earn a lot more money, in the private sector. You weren't tempted to go and...
Oh, yeah, I was. Yeah. And funnily, the thing was in 2017 when Labour came in, I was basically tossing up the idea of going to a large firm as soon as I'd finished in the Beehive, because I was a independent, as in like public sector private secretary. So I was thinking, go to a firm, go work for another big organisation, or at the time, the minister, who was Stuart Nash, needed political staff. I think the typical me, basically being solutions focused and hating frustration and disorganisation, that's why I think in some ways I went to the political role with Stuart. Was not in the plan to become an MP from there at all.
It's also, I mean, I don't know about IRD, but, in those, in the private sector, that's often quite a conservative end of the law. I guess, tax lawyers or tax specialists generally can be, say on the right of the political spectrum and all that sort of stuff. Is that unfair?
I think it's it's the same with business, right? You could say that business are all National Party voters, but actually that's come to me. As time progresses, you actually come to see that that's a fallacy in itself as well. I think it's the same with the tax community. I went to a tax conference not long after I was actually appointed the finance spokesperson, went to just listen, and, it was really nice to catch up with some old friends right across the private sector. And I could see a generational change, a generational view difference between the younger tax practitioners and some of the old tax practitioners. So I could see that quite clearly in the room. So I think, I think they're of all stripes, really. But one thing that tax practitioners absolutely want is a cohesive tax system.
Yeah.
So, there's be some bits that Labor has done that they won't like, and there's some bits that National have done which they won't like. But generally, most tax practitioners do accept the broad-based low rate, and they do want a cohesive system.
Yeah, it's usually about, I guess to be fair, it's usually the idea that they want tax to be, transparent, efficient,
certain,
and certain, all those things, which can be done in a range of different ways, right? So.
Yeah, it totally can. And again, it depends on the government the day. And I think probably the reason why I could transition quite easily from two National Party ministers being their revenue advisor to then coming into a Labor Party is that for the majority of the tax work program for a government is actually generally the same. It's just the bigger ticket items where there is a point of difference, but majority of it is remedials and things like that.
Sure. We've talked a bit about some pretty stellar career progression. Probably a good time to mention that you've got 8 children. Is that correct? I think that's
I've got 8.
Well. I saw you on 7 days. Actually, it was good.
8 babies. They keep me grounded. Our baby Harmony is 11, and my oldest daughter Acacia just turned 20.
Wow. So I guess the question is, how do you manage that in a career? A very supportive husband?
Very good husband, who basically gave up his career to look after our kids. I mean, It was his dream to walk the kids to school, and it was my dream to become a lawyer or a doctor.
Yeah. With 8 children, any twins, triplets?
No, one after the other.
Wow.
If you put my pregnancies back to back, I was in the state of fecundity for 6 years straight.
Wow,
Yeah, so I actually saw a lot in the health system during that period of 9 years where I was pregnant, and I could see the guideline changes from for things and just being a patient every year.
Yeah, and I guess people must have made these sort of jokes, but if you can manage 8, I've got 3 kids. If you can manage 8 kids, maybe you can manage New Zealand's economy.
Well,
it's
pretty economies of scales from 3 kids. Number 1 is just mind-blowing. It was the hardest. Yeah. Number 2, you're just like, oh my gosh, what do we do with 2? You kind of have an idea. I found from number 3, you're always tired, you're always changing someone's bum, someone's always crying, someone's always hungry. You just give up and you just realise that actually you just relax as a parent and just go with the flow.
And there must be a point at which the elder ones can help out a bit. Is that?
Yeah, well, actually they kind of do. Like my eldest girl, she, I look back and I think, she was pretty mature for a 3-year-old and what she could do and things like that. I mean, and it's great. You kind of teach them home skills quite early. So we have this kind of thing with our older girls. They roster on for food budget. So each week it's one of our daughters. Our son doesn't do it because he just can't be bothered, but he also trains a lot for rugby. So one daughter will have the budget for the week for food. She will go online, she will do the meal plan for the food for the week, she'll make sure we have everything else for the shopping list, she will go online, she will do the online shopping, Dad will go pick it up from Pack and Save later in the week, whatever. They get to keep whatever is left over in the food budget.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So up to $100.
Yep.
It cannot be more than that because we realise that that's where it cuts off the efficiencies and because they basically cut back on someone else's budget going forward. But it teaches them, 1, how to basically plan for a large for a family. 2, if they make meals that the other kids don't like, then the kids protest and then they end up having to go into their own pocket to buy takeaways or something to top it up. And then 3, all of a sudden I'm coming home with a bag of shopping and it's like, well, Mum, where did you get that money from? Like they become basically, they understand budgets.
Yeah.
I'm the only income earner in the house, so I do go back to them. I say, all this money is money that Mum has earned.
Yeah. So you're instilling that kind of sense of value of money early on. I mean, I guess going back, did you must have got a good sense of that yourself growing up. You've obviously been good with money. Is it? You think it's a sort of an innate thing, or is it?
I could always be better with money. That's for sure. There's always still the temptation. A new coat would be nice. But I think it's just when you don't, economics at its very purest form is about the allocation of resources, right? Yeah. So when you're growing up in a household where there is not much resource, you basically become a bit more smarter with how things are done. So I think that is a lesson learnt very easily growing up.
Got a few quick fire questions, and one of them is, and you may have touched on it, but maybe not. Who knows? But what's the poorest you've ever been?
$8 in the hand with a family of 4, And that's why every dollar counts, and I know exactly what it's like to basically have a car, going for a warrant of fitness, and just praying that it doesn't need anything fixed because you don't have much money there to fix it.
So this is in the early days of you having 4 kids?
Having 4, two kids actually.
Yeah,
so while I was studying...
Oh, a family of 4, 2 kids.
So I was studying, my husband was working in a timber machinery factory, and so we knew back then every dollar counted. It's also why I'm very strongly Labour, because Helen Clark and Michael Cullen came in and did a boost for working for family. We went from $8 in the hand to just over $100 in the hand.
So it literally changed your life.
It changed our life.
Yeah. Actually, I was going to ask, about, was there a point at which you decided you could see that you wanted to be a politician yourself? I see that you worked for Michael Woodhouse and Judith Collins, you mentioned, and then Stuart Nash. So there must have been...
No, if anything, they put me off. They put me off. But again, I'm a mum of 8, so I had my day job, right, in the beehive, but actually my nighttime job, because I was a lawyer, I was the lawyer for the school, lawyer for the rugby club. I was on the school boards. I was running sports clubs, because that's just the things that you do as a parent. For me, actually, it was the death of 2 board members at the local school on the board I was with, that they had both been working for decades to try and change things in our community in Porirua, and that basically at both their deaths, almost similar speeches, saying these men were not perfect men, but they tried their hardest. And for me, that was my epiphany moment in the death of the second one at the marae in Porirua, where I just decided, if becoming a politician was a way to get change on steroids, then I was in.
Right. So it was a very specific...
Yeah, it was a very specific moment.
It's interesting. Another quick question. What's the most indulgent purchase you've ever made?
Probably some perfume.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was like only a few $100s, but I'm normally, for some women, they'll know what like CK1 was, Sunflowers, the red door that I kind of grew up with in the 90s. But actually, quite recently, I sport myself by buying a really nice bottle of perfume.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Is there anything you still dream of, buying for yourself one day, or like fancy sports car or something for your family, bigger house?
We have a family of 10 in a 110-metre square house, 2-storey house.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's for pure simplicity reasons. One, we love our neighbourhood. We bought the house when we actually only had 3 children. Pregnant with number 4, so we weren't expecting to have that many. We had 4 children at the time, 4, pregnant with number 5. And then basically it's quite nice to have a low mortgage and to be able to use that equity in other ways. Yeah.
During the election campaign, Christopher Luxon got asked about spending on groceries, and I still think he probably misunderstood the question. But anyway, he said he spent $60 a week on groceries.
Yep.
I'm interested to know, with 8 kids, what does your spend
so for
look
a family of 10, it's $480 a week.
It's a full shopping trolley, I guess.
Yeah, it is a full shopping trolley.
In fact, can you keep the cupboards full all week, or do you have to go?
No.
I've got teenage boys, and it's hard to keep.
Yeah, I know. I've got 2 teenage boys as well. No, it's basically, again, the planning that the girls have to go through is where we stock up on things as they're cheaper. So in some respect, it was $450 a few years ago, but obviously inflation. But $480 a week.
Yeah.
Which is still cheap. $48. $48 per person over a week.
There's some serious meal planning going on.
Yeah, it is. Spag bowl all the way.
There's as we record this, there's a big $50 million lotto draw coming up. Do you ever buy lotto tickets, and do you imagine winning lotto?
Funnily enough, I wasn't able to buy it last year because I was the Minister of DIA.
Oh, right, yeah.
So I was the head of the lottery.
That's official law, is it?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's official law, but basically I remember someone telling me it was a bad look if the minister that is the head of the lottery grants board.
It's going to be bad.
Yeah. So I do know, I think we do have a lotto account, but it's more something my husband would do rather than me.
Yeah.
I just don't have time.
Fair enough.
$50 million, all the best to whoever. In some ways, I hope that it's not just one person and then it drops down to the second division and it gets spread a bit more.
Yeah, well, that's something I actually do ask as well sometimes, is how much, people who do imagine winning lotto, how much do you imagine winning? Because 50 million could turn your life upside down, and you might not want that, right? So you might.
Yeah,
everybody wants the mortgage paid.
Someone gave me $50 million. I'm all for it.
It's nice to pay the mortgage off, but yeah. a couple of biggest sort of questions to finish, actually. So maybe this goes to economics too, really. But when you look around at social inequality and the things, I guess that when I think of what Labour stands for example, what do you think the big drivers of inequality in New Zealand are at the moment?
Housing.
Yeah.
It takes up most of a proportion of a person's income. I think about when mum died. If mum and dad weren't able to capitalise their family scheme benefit through a policy of Walter Nash back in the day, and the government hadn't provided this basically huge property development block where you could buy cheap homes, if they didn't have that and dad didn't have a house, I think we would have been in worse poverty when mum died. But the fact is that we had a certainty of a home over our head. So I can't imagine what it's like to I actually know what it's like to be with rent and $8 in the hand, but I can't imagine what it'd be like when you have a huge life shock like that, where you go to basically one very low income. And mum and dad, like dad was an admin clerk, mum was an aged care worker, so they weren't earning that much anyway. But yeah, housing is the biggest at the moment. Basically determinant of social factors.
Sure. I mean, I guess, well, I'm not going to get into too much specifics about what you think we could do about that, but I mean, are there, broadly, when you think about the economics, the way you look at economics, what are the pathways for dealing with that? I mean, from a career point of view, do you come at it like, I guess, Labour is traditionally centre left, but how strong are you on all that side of things?
Well, I haven't really thought about what economic theory that it would I would line up with, or what economists that would pick the kind of my thinking in particular when it comes to housing. But I do know that in order to build more housing, you got to have the infrastructure. Yeah. And if you don't have the infrastructure, which is something that basically governments and councils have basically deferred for so long, you get to a point where basically you've reached the capacity of the limits of your city and you aren't able to build more. So I know that's not really answering the question around what sort of economic theory, but it's something that basically I believe that when the market does fail, the government does have to intervene. Yeah. And so the affordable water reforms, or three waters, water done well, needs to be done. Whatever label you want to put on it, whatever entity or however you want to frame it, we can't build more without that water infrastructure being fixed. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not going to ask you about tax changes that might fix housing, because I know Labour's busy working on a new tax policy.
I guess I could say more generally, though, we need to remove this incentive that the tax system provides for Kiwis to invest in property. Yeah. It is definitely, the tax system does incentivise that. So it's something that, we get higher wages when we produce more things. So being able to look at that through that lens, as opposed to basically, a salary and wage earner who's a cleaner gets every dollar of what they've earned tax, but a person that basically through capital doesn't get their capital tax. So there has to be a balance there.
Sure. I mean, are you someone who believes that tax can be a lever for, behavioural change and that kind of thing? I mean, obviously, if, you're talking to David Seymour or something, it's get out of the way, lowest tax, and let people...
I think that fundamentally, though, comes down to that question of, and I think we are very much at that crossroads, does New Zealand want to be a Singapore, or do we want to be a Nordic country? And clearly, because I'm centre-left and Labour, we would want to be the Nordic country, right? But at the same time, we have to have that conversation with Kiwis, and if Kiwis don't sign up to it, then we're just not in government.
Sure.
Yeah. So for me, around the taxation part, it's not meant to incentivise behaviour. You want to have a tax-neutral system, but the way the New Zealand tax system is, I'm quite clear, it does incentivise particular behaviours.
Sure, yeah. Well, just finally, we always sort of ask people if you were to become Prime Minister for a day, what you'd do. Now, I think I'm not sure if it was. It might have been Stuart Nash who said that you thought you could be Prime Minister.
Yes, Stewie.
So you may well be.
He's a different, but Stewie.
Yeah. Well, do you have ambitions for that sort of role?
No, I've got 8 children.
Yeah.
I know people could say, that's a really good, that makes you more qualified to be a Prime Minister. But for me, I think the pressure I've seen behind the scenes for a long time, I think the pressure that it puts on a family, not just a partner, but also on the children. I I'm quite clear, for me, that's the boundary,
Yeah.
and if I could do it in a way that my children could be safe, they could have their privacy, because they are very private people, and they should be private people. They're all basically almost in their teens.
Yeah.
Why do they want mum sharing pictures of them on Facebook? I don't share pictures of my children on,
Sure.
my social media. That's my boundary. So, so going back to your question, what I do if I was Prime Minister for the day, never going to happen.
But if we could hypothetically give you control of New Zealand to implement some big, is there something you would like to see change most? If just in terms of the thing you think might make the most difference if New Zealanders could sort of change its attitude to something. Again, I'm trying to ask this question without being too policy specific.
Policy specific. It's a hard question, right? I mean, there are so many things. You could pick housing, you could pick saving dolphins, because I know Jacinda used to get lots of letters from kids about saving the Hector's dolphin. For me, I think it sounds so fluffy, but I feel like we're in a situation at the moment in our country where the loudest voice gets the loudest time, the most airtime. For me, I'd be like, get off your phones, people, and go and talk to each other. Go say hello to your neighbour, go share a meal with your friends. I think for me, if it sounds so fluffy, but if I was Prime Minister for the day, given everything that's happening at the moment, I'd say to people, put down your phone and engage with your families and your friends. So
a bit of communication. Yeah. Talking to the community.
Because it's totally different. What people would say to you online is not what they'd say to your face, right? And I've just come back from a speech in North Harbour, and I had a person who was quite strong around his views on a particular thing. And it's just like, let's go talk about this afterwards. Yeah. And they don't come and see you afterwards. No. It's very much for them, it was just an opportunity for just to yell out what their views were. But we're better than that. Yeah. Us Kiwis are better than that.
Yeah, and those debates can happen face to face much better than
much
they do
easier,
online, right? So,
because things are nuanced as opposed to being online. So fluffy as it is, I'd be like, okay, here's a day where everyone puts away their phones and just enjoys being with their family and friends, and let's just remember what makes New Zealand special.
That's great. Well, look, I'm going to leave it there, but thank you very much, Barbara Edmonds. Thanks for being on Money Talks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Money Talks. If you want to get in touch, drop me a line at liam.dan@nzme.co.nz. And you can read more from me at nzherald.co.nz. Thanks to my producer, Ethan Sills, and sound engineer, Leanne McDonald. Follow Money Talks on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts, with new episodes available every Thursday.